Greetings and welcome to valortube.com. I am Paul Lear and I'm your host of This Week in Prophecy. Got another busy week. Seems to be a little bit more focused this week. We're going to start the report in Sochi, Russia. And we're going to look at this from a couple of different angles. And the reason we care about this is Ezekiel 38:39 is the point in prophecy. And for those of you familiar with Ezekiel 38 and 39, you'll remember that at some point in the future, Russia, along with some friends from Iran, Turkey, Libya, arguably the Sudan, Ethiopia, they're all going to go and invade Israel to take booty and steal resources. And I think we have all the aspects of that story involved this week. We're going to look at it first from an Israeli perspective. I want to give a big shout out to Checkmate at valortube.com. He sent me this as a post. This is from israelhyom.com. Putin hosts Prime Minister Bennett hails Russian-Israeli ties as unique. And it's just a bunch of feel-good stuff. I didn't find this to say a whole lot, which I find kind of fascinating coming from the Israelis. It's the first time that Putin hosted Prime Minister Naftali Bennett for their first meeting. And, of course, they're friends. Friendly ties between the two countries. They have a unique relationship. Of course, the Russian people are all about standing up for Israel and standing up against anti-Semitism. So, if you listen to this, you'd think that, and it's a fact though. They did do this during World War II. The Russians were instrumental in help taking down the Nazis and all the things they did to the Jewish people. So history is on their side in that sense, and that they helped kind of stop all the anti-Semitism that was taking place. The quote from Bennett: "I can tell you on behalf of the citizens of Israel that we consider you a true friend of the Jewish people." And that's really, we're going to talk about the situation in Syria, efforts to halt the Iranian nuclear program. Bennett said at the start of his talks with Putin. I never saw anything of the outcome of that discussion, which may tell you something. The two leaders were also expected to talk about security and economic issues involving both countries. So I didn't see anything from the Jewish press. It was pretty much standard what I saw right here, which is a little disappointing. Makes me wonder how it really went. And then I did want to look at it from Russian state-run media, RT. Russia and Israel are connected by very deep bond, and Putin is, quote, this is a close, true friend of the Jewish people. So the Jewish people can relax. They have a close, true friend in Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Now, I will say this about the Russians. They actually have more quotes and more information than what the Jewish sources had. And they got some tweets out there. And here's Bennett said to Putin, "For the last 20 years and even more, you've led the process of strengthening ties between our countries and brought them to this level. And I'd like to tell you, in the name of the entire country, of all our people, we see you in a very close, true friend of the state of Israel and the Jewish people." So much so that the Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, he put up a tweet. There it is. Shaking hands, the happy flags. Everything looks good, doesn't it? How about that? Another story: Russia and Israel united by both nations, resolute rejection of anti-Semitism and any manifestations of xenophobia. And again, that's from Putin. I don't know if Putin is Gog of Magog, but if he is, he's playing a good game of poker, and he's not being real honest, which I don't know where Putin's heart is on that. And I don't know if Putin's is that person. But what I did find interesting was the quote below. This visit coincided with the 30th anniversary of the restoration of full diplomatic relations between Israel and Russia, which is celebrated on October 18th. Putin said that the two nations have, quote, fruitful cooperation in many areas, including the drive for, quote, peace, security, and stability in the Middle East. These politicians love peace and security in the Middle East, and they're just quoting scripture. And anytime you hear any of these politicians start talking about peace and security in the Middle East, you better buckle your seatbelt because things are about to get a little rough. And it's been that way, especially over about the last 4 years. And they all love to quote it: peace and security in the Middle East, peace and security between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Biden's even talking about that to some degree. Peace, or the Biden administration, Joe's not talking about it. Peace and security, Abraham Accords. And they're just quoting scripture right out of First Thessalonians. And we're united. This is a further quote from Putin. We are united by a resolute rejection of anti-Semitism, any manifestations of xenophobia and ethnic strife, as well as any attempts to falsify history and revise the outcome of World War II. So there you have it. Vlad's on the right side of history. But we know, Scripture says, Ezekiel 38:39, that at some point Russia, Turkey, Iran, and some friends will invade Israel because of resources, natural resources. And this is what Israel has that I think is going to be the key to it. Again, big shout out on this to Checkmate as well, forwarded this article. Israel, Egypt plan new gas pipe that could boost Europe's supplies. And that's a big deal to the people in Europe because Russia has cut natural gas delivery to Europe, depending on where you read, anywhere from 67 to 75% for this upcoming winter. And there are parts of Europe that are worried about, frankly, freezing out. And the quote, so the pipeline, I'll get to the quote here in a little bit. The pipeline will run from Israel to the Egyptian border on the Sinai Peninsula and will be operated by Israel Natural Gas Lines, a government-owned corporation. And so from there, beyond the Mediterranean, have distribution just across the Mediterranean to Western Europe. And this is because Israel has large quantities of natural gas. Well, they will be an exporter of natural gas, energy independent. And Israel's been sending natural gas supplies to Egypt via underwater pipeline. And some of that is then refined and sent to Europe, where gas prices have just gone nuts. They've gone up 5 times, fivefold in the last year. And, a new pipeline could increase the amount to be delivered to European customers in years to come. And here's the quote: Israel and Egypt are holding talks on possible cooperation in the supply of natural gas. One of the options being studied following a request by Egypt for further natural gas supplies is an onshore gas pipeline. Okay. Expected to cost $200 million to build. That would be operational within 2 years. And I think the timing of this, it's, as it relates to Ezekiel, if this is the time that many of us think it is, and we think that, this invasion, this prophetic call from Ezekiel roughly 2,700 years ago, we're watching these things come into shape. And it's always been my position. It's like, I don't see Russia doing anything, Russia and friends doing anything until the infrastructure is in place and until Israel starts cutting into Russia, Turkey, and Iran's back pocket. When they start affecting their pocketbook and taking away business, that's when they're going to get interested in going after Israel's natural gas supply. And again, here's your chart. This is from the last year. These are the November 21 contracts and the Dutch TTF gas futures. So this would be like our commodities exchange here in the United States. Well, this is the one for Europe, the Dutch TTF gas futures. And you can see this stuff, about a year ago, and this is in euros, roughly 18 euros per unit. And that price has increased as high as 116. So you're looking at easily 6 times as of the beginning of the month. Now it's settled a little bit, but for any of you folks who do technical analysis of these charts, that thing's getting ready to probably spike and pop again. But at any rate, you're looking at rates 5 to 6 times higher for the cost of natural gas at the wholesale commodity level as it was at the beginning of the year. And, Russia has no competition. So nobody's going to cut in on their business. And all they've got to do is control the supply, cut back on the supply, and it just becomes a simple supply-demand issue. There'll be less supply available, which will drive the cost higher. And so people are not going to want to freeze. They'll pay whatever to some degree to allow, for cooking heat in the homes across Western Europe. And, what we're talking about would be putting a line down here in Israel to Egypt, and then being able to ship this stuff. Some people think it goes into Athens. I've even seen some that think Thessalonica or Thessaloniki, which is Thessalonica of the First and Second Thessalonians. They're a key player in all of this, and it's fascinating that all these names of places in the Bible from 2,000 to 2,700 years ago, not only are they names of books and places in the Bible that were relevant 2,700 years ago, they're relevant today. Thessaloniki, Greece, is going to be a major hub for natural gas distribution. And if somebody sees that, that's the Bible, they'll look up the Bible, and then they'll see all this talk when they're talking peace, safety, security. Peace and security, trouble's on the horizon. And there will be the reminder from the name, read the scripture, and that's what these people are talking about in this time of the, late 2021. Peace and security. It's everywhere. And then from there, we're going to back this out a little bit further. And we're going to go to Times of Israel. And this gentleman's Defense Minister Benny Gantz of the newfound change government in Israel. And he has taken, and they announced this, he's taken off on a 4-day security visit to an unnamed foreign security. So it's not like it's in complete secret. He's like, because he could just take off and go somewhere and nobody would probably say anything. But, the Israeli government's saying, hey, he's taken off for 4 days to an unnamed foreign country, and we're not telling you. So kind of remind you of some little kids on the playground. I'm not going to tell you. Okay, fine. So all kinds of speculation. Office says trip will be focused on security issues. And so they're just asking people to speculate. So that's what I'm going to do. He's going to be back Thursday afternoon. So my speculation, take it for what it's worth, I would think one of these places he's headed to is probably to Saudi Arabia. And we're going to talk peace with Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. I would think he's on that's where the plane's going to. And who knows who else is going to join them there in Saudi Arabia. So the following countries, per various news outlets, appear to be lining up for the Abraham Accords. And these include Oman, Qatar. So we'd have 3 here on the Arabian Peninsula. We have Tunisia is rumored to be a candidate to join the Abraham Accords. And then also Malaysia is rumored to be willing to join the Abraham Accords with these other countries. And then there is a little island right there, Comoros. They also are looking to be joining. They may be the first, just if you read the different things in the press as to who may join, who may not join. But, the big get for the Abraham Accords would be the Saudis. Checkmate talks a lot about Qatar, and they are power brokers in the Middle East. And this little peninsula country has all kinds of money and influence throughout the Middle East. And they are very well worth watching. If you'll notice, any kind of brokered deal or any kind of brokered discussions that takes place, even between Muslim countries, Qatar's in the middle of it. And they're also in the middle of any kind of Jewish, Muslim, Abraham Accords talk. They're willing to host things. They're willing to have people involved. Our government will, even this was happening as we were exiting Afghanistan. There were discussions that took place on how to make that happen in Qatar. After the United States was out, continued to have discussions with the Taliban in Qatar. Qatar. I know I've heard some of the press call it Qatar. Same place, and that's where it's located. It's a little peninsula country on the Arabian Peninsula. Lots of money, lots of influence, and they're willing to throw it around. They're brokers. They're brokering something. They also are willing to support some very bad guys as well. So interesting stuff, interesting times. So Gantz will be back Thursday. I suspect they'll tell us then. I don't know what their plans are when they would be looking to release new members of the Abraham Accords. And also Jared Kushner, he keeps showing up in the news. And there's some stories out there that he's looking to get some funding from the Saudis for one of his companies or a business investment to the tune of $2.5 billion. That's $2.5 billion. I guess that's his price for brokering some peace. They broker some more peace for $2.5 billion. I don't know. And a lot of people think, oh, he's the Antichrist. And I'm not saying he is or is not. I don't think he is. But he keeps showing up in the news, even once Trump's out of office. He keeps showing up. So interesting times. We probably ought to keep an eye on what's going on with all these countries and all these characters in the name of peace. Which takes us to the United States. U.S. military conducts 3 successful tests to advance hypersonic weapon program. Well, Russia has shown they have hypersonic missiles. China has hypersonic missiles, and by golly, we've got them too. We have the Navy and the Army announced Thursday 3 hypersonic component prototypes were tested Wednesday. We've got them too. Now, I didn't pull this article up, but it's a short article. But Russia spent a lot of time, RT spent a lot of time explaining the flaws of the U.S. hypersonic missile program. Usually RT's kind of short, sweet, to the point. 4 or 5 paragraphs. Here are the details. Doesn't go into much detail. Well, I'll tell you what, they spent a lot of words and a lot of ink explaining the flaws of the U.S. hypersonic missile program. This quote's interesting. Hypersonic weapons can travel more than 3,850 miles per hour, or 5 times the speed of sound. At least. Maybe go faster. So, again, but the escalation of weapons and more destructive weapons continues to increase across the planet. And another thing we want to keep an eye on. And lastly, we're going to close with Mount Osso in Japan. And this is one of the world's largest volcanoes. It's a super volcano in the south. It's on one of the southern islands of Japan. And it woke up this past week. And it's pretty impressive. I think blue ash and smoke. What? I don't know. 3 miles into the air, they said 15,000 feet, 15 to 20,000 feet. So we have that going on. Volcanic activity is increasing across this planet. And we also have the situation in La Palma in the Canary Islands. That continues to escalate. I think they had their largest earthquake today, 4.9, about 30 kilometers below the level. I think there are 4 or 5 vents opening, and the vents continue to kind of pop through the and vent closer and closer to the ocean. More and more lava, magma continues to come out. And that's not backing off, and that's not getting easier or lighter or decreasing in frequency intensity. So, again, another relatively busy week across the planet. I'll show you real quick where Mount Osso is. It's down here in there it is. We'll put a little cursor on it and back it out. So you get a feel for where that volcano was. So, world's largest caldera, they say. That's their claim to fame. And so that's blowing up. I think we probably ought to pay attention to that. Regardless of whether or not you believe in prophecy. It doesn't really matter. One of these big things opens up and blows enough ash and, gases into the air, affect the atmosphere, cool things off on the planet. We may have some problems growing some things in a summer. So we'll pay attention to it. 280 square mile national park. It's nuts. I mean, it's a massive hole. And you can kind of get that flavor. We'll do this. And you can see you can see the caldera from up here. I mean, look at that. It's a massive volcano. So there's Nagasaki as well. But anyway, that's what I got for this week in prophecy. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please feel free to share with others the goings on at valortube.com. Again, my name's Paul Lear, and I'm your host this week in prophecy, and I appreciate you guys following along. Wish you the best. Catch you next week, Lord willing. Take care. Bye.